Well, let's move over to entertainment. We talked about Netflix earlier. Let's talk about the traditional media. So let's go to the box office. The top grossing box office movie. Do you have any guess?
Sinners.
Domestic box office for
In what,
2025.
in 2025?
2025 domestic box office.
I'd assume Sinners. Sinners is very, very hot right now, but I don't know if that's
Okay, right
actually
now it is.
like,
I don't know how. Are we
yeah.
going
Yeah.
for the full year?
So it's the top grossing box office movie for 2025 is a Minecraft movie. It's
Doi.
grossed 350 million. Next is a Captain America Brave New World at 200 million. Third is Mufasa the Lion King at 126 million. Okay, so a couple of questions for you. How do you see the box office these days as young whippersnappers in comparison to, let's say, sitting at home watching streaming? And are you surprised at what's done well?
I mean, I think so for a good while, like in 2023, 2024, there were writers, like directors, actors strikes, and all that sort of stuff. That meant that a lot of movies that should have been releasing like in the 2024 period in 2023 got delayed by significant capacity. Their writing took longer, their production took longer. So even so far, like the Minecraft movie is probably the biggest thing that's come out in since the beginning of 2025. We're actually coming up on like what is a pretty exciting season of a lot of like pretty high budget films. Sinners being the first of them, but there are again like Marvel's printing out movies again. We'll see how those end up doing. I'm really excited for The Accountant 2, which I think has already come out, but I haven't yet seen it. Even balloons for The Accountant 2. There's just a lot of like I think we're seeing some level of an excitement in some capacity. We'll see how long this really stays, but like Oppenheimer, Barbie, Dune has shown like a audience desire for like fresh new IP or fresh new content. Studios will milk that however much they want, but there's clearly like more and more space for like original films that aren't like these gigantic mega universe franchises, right? Marvel movies are not doing as well as they used to. New original IP or one-off like kind of hits are becoming more common. And so I love movies. I haven't gone to like I go to the theater like probably at least like once a month or once every 2 months for some film, assuming there's something exciting coming out. And like I know like over this next month in particular, there's like three or four movies I'm trying to go see in theaters as they come out. It just makes for I think like a there's a difference between it's the same thing as like almost for me personally it's almost like a it's the same thing as like you work in a different place you sleep kind of thing, you know, like my place for recreation I feel like I kind of want to be out of the home, whereas the home is the place to like eat, rest, sleep, that sort of thing, and watch White Lotus on my iPhone now. And that's really the extent of it.
Nice. Damon?
Yeah, this is not. I don't watch movies, honestly. Like I haven't been to a movie theater in probably a decade, maybe, and
Mm.
it would take someone paying me money to go sit through a movie in a movie theater, to be frank. And so, like, I do watch some after they like Oppenheimer is probably my favorite movie in the last, call it 3 years or so. I loved Oppenheimer, but I would not go watch that in theaters. And so, like,
Why?
watching it at
What
home, streaming. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, number one, when I want to go out and see something, I find myself gravitating towards live
Sure.
performances because I find much more kind of reverence in watching humans in live action be great at things, not something that is pre-recorded and kind of can be massaged. And that's just like a little bit of a like I prefer the performing arts over movies as a live experience. That's just a personal preference. You
I
know,
see.
that's independent of like going out and seeing it or watching like Hamilton recorded
Hmm.
on Disney Plus, right? I kind of by default, the movies that I would most enjoy. I only have a couple of peers that I think would enjoy those movies as well, and so just like by nature, like I don't see going to the movies as a social event. Therefore, I'm kind of just like
Hmm.
I'd rather watch this at home. Also, the electronics that I can put in my living room have surpassed my threshold of appreciation. I'm not really a cinephile. I have friends that are cinephiles, and so they'll very much like stake out the absolute best, Dolby theaters. They will go to the like most expensive of IMAXs, travel to various
Yeah.
parts of the country to find the most premium of theaters to watch the most premium of movies, right? And so those things are just simply lost on me. It's kind of like going to top of the line orchestra or opera or something like that is just something that I don't have a refined taste for.
I
So I
see.
just don't get as much appreciation out of it as the next person, and therefore I just haven't much interest in kind of exploring the even the domestic box office, just like the AMC. down the street
Yeah.
or whatever. It doesn't really pique my interest at all.
So like if I like with Oppenheimer, I mean, I don't know. I assume you watched it after it had its like theatrical run. You watched it like
Yeah.
at home or something similar.
Mhm.
But like the idea of like Christopher Nolan blew up like 70 tons of whatever TNT he used to recreate a nuke, and recorded it on like IMAX 70 millimeter cameras. Like that last part of that sentence, you couldn't care less for.
I appreciate it from the
Okay.
engineering feat that it is. Like I
Yeah.
applaud it, but my actual
Okay.
consumption of it in real time, I don't. I derive no extra pleasure from
I see.
seeing that in IMAX than I do. And like I even paid for Oppenheimer to get it early
Yeah.
on my TV, so it's not a like I don't care about the cost of it.
Yeah.
I just don't find any additional enjoyment in doing it. The one thing I will say is I would be interested in seeing something like Avatar or Oppenheimer in like the Sphere in Vegas because
Mm.
that is fundamentally like a more immersive experience, and I'd be willing to try that as a one time to see if that crosses some additional threshold for me. But
Mhm.
just like the delta between my 65-inch TV in my living room and the IMAX movie screen at my local AMC, there's just simply no difference in that to me in my consumption of it. I understand the engineering difference
Yeah.
that is between those two, but again, I don't have the refined taste
And it
for
does end
the
up being like
preference
a
in one.
selling point for you, basically. I see. Well, you, Shashi, with kids, I have to imagine the Minecraft movie was somewhere in the household conversation now.
Yeah, my kids, I think they each saw it twice. Kids have an appetite to see movies multiple times. I don't. I mean, if I see it once in the theater, I don't really want to see the same movie again, by and large. Just to go through the top three movies, the top five movies, a question comes to mind that I have been probing at. There's so many of these derivative movies. Like, so the number two so far grossing movie, Captain America Brave New World, very derivative of an existing series. Mufasa, Lion King, and Snow White, live action versions of kind of very established brands in the Disney framework. And since three of them, including Marvel's Captain America, are owned by Disney, I was just sort of curious, like, do these derivative things, like, I think in most of our minds, they lose points for just being derivative and extending an existing franchise, but do they make money? And so the summary of that is that the Mufasa Lion King movie grossed 722 million worldwide and has produced a profit for Disney of 175 million. The Captain America movie also made a profit. They've grossed over 400 million worldwide. Unsure exactly how much profit, but they do appear to now be profitable. And the Snow White movie is a bit of a counter story. They're probably going to lose around 115 million in the Snow White movie, live action movie. So I guess just kind of as we come to an end, what's your take on Disney and their kind of franchise extension plays, live action plays, either from the financial angle or just kind of appreciation of content?
I mean, so I think like if you talk to anyone my age, like anyone would be like, oh, like Marvel and Disney like peaked with like the Infinity War Endgame, right? Where like I think that's what like Disney wants to keep on creating, where like they can have these cultural moments that everyone's like, I have to go see this in the theater. I want to be part of the conversation. Like this is a moment happening in like cultural history that everyone wants to be educated on, right? Like, oh, Tim over there hasn't like heard about what happens at the end of Endgame, right? We should talk about something else today. You know, like Disney wants more of that. The problem is that in trying to achieve that, they've saturated their own market so much that fatigue is so common with their franchises, right? I think I say this is like probably of like the Disney like or the Marvel like cinematic characters and whatnot. Captain America was by far one of my favorite franchises they produced. I had zero interest in seeing this like new movie they made. Like everything I was seeing about it, I was like, nah, get this out of my face. I'm so sick of this. They like saturate Star Wars, they saturate Marvel. They have like these Lion King, these live action properties, but they're mostly rehashes of the past. I think general American sentiment of people who are like adolescent and above is pretty tired of it. On the other hand, to people who are younger than that, you're introducing them to these stories for the first time. And these stories are successful because they're good stories, right? The story of Mufasa, Lion King, all this sort of stuff is fundamentally appealing at a core level. And the stories have made money and made franchises built off of them for good reason. So I think like parents taking their kids to go see something for a weekend, it makes sense why these are still really supported in the box office, are still really supported on streaming. There's another element of this where internationally, this is just like a strange thing to me that I've never really understood. Like China and East Asia in particular eat up these like live action CGI heavy films. Like the Transformers movies, most of their box office comes out of East Asia, interestingly. And you'll notice a lot of the time the Transformers films, the set pieces are placed in like Hong Kong or Shanghai and that sort of stuff because they get a governmental benefit to filming in those locations or putting set pieces in those locations that leads to higher promotional material in those countries. So I think like the outside of the American sentiment, the thing I just described is like a little bit more like what our exposure has been, where like we've exposed to the Lion King story for 30 something years now. We know the Marvel property because it's been like stuffed down our throats for so long. But internationally, these things have legs, and we are still getting these stories introduced to a younger audience who's never heard them before. So they'll still do well in the box office. Just think they're at a point where some innovation is necessary, and they haven't really figured out what that is.
Yeah, I won't comment much on the content side because as I just kind of described it, I don't think that much about it. But from a business standpoint, topical to this conversation, there's a new series on Apple TV by Seth Rogen and others that kind of remark on the disposition of studios in greenlighting what we're calling here derivative products and novel products. And the key takeaway from a business standpoint is that novel products are very difficult relative to derivatives to activate viewership for. Like, even though people, as Lakshay is accurately describing, grow tired of the next Captain America or rehashing Lion King, the activation energy to get people to watch and consume that when they already know the story is far lower. So, from an ROI perspective, the bet of the largest studios on those derivative works comes at a lower risk than the novel, the Sinners or otherwise. Because the reality is, most new movies don't do well, and you're much more likely to have a successful sequel than you are to have a successful new product, right? The Accountant 2 is a much a lower risk bet than Accountant 1 was when it came out the first time. And so what you see is these rehashing of these things, these well-known IPs to activate people to come back to the box office, even if that means it is a child being introduced to Captain America for the first time through this relatively new lens, because then you kind of retroactivate them to the older Captain Americas. And so you gain viewership down that value chain because there's direct association with the new derivative product. Even if, me as somebody who liked the Iron Man series wouldn't necessarily go out and watch the new, Avengers or anything like that Iron Man was in. So I think about it from that perspective. And also to Lakshay's point about the Transformers, which I didn't actually know that about Transformers, but there's also large incentive for the offshoring of production because, frankly, it's just cheaper to film in other areas, and other studios that film in countries that are not the U.S. do so at lower budgets, and so therefore the money you need to actually make to become profitable in these productions becomes less as well.
You're muted, Shashi.
Here are some upcoming Disney movies, and I'll just give you like my never seen these film critic: 3 no thank yous and 2 yes pleases. Thunderbolts, no thank you. Doesn't look interesting. I don't know. My immediate read is feels like a derivative wannabe Marvel thing, and as we said earlier, it just seems so saturated. I'm kind of over it. Lilo and Stitch live action, no thank you. I just don't like taking these existing really great historical like Disney products and trying to redo them with live action. It doesn't appeal to me. And then moving down, Tron, excited about it.
Yes.
I'm bought into
Hell
that.
yes. Hell yes.
So yeah, I want that one. And then Fire and Ash, Avatar. Looking forward to this one at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the thing we keep seeing every now and again, so like Thunderbolts, that's like basically like Marvel's all their B list, C list characters that they introduced over the last couple of years that no one was watching a movie. They don't have an Avengers property right now. This is their attempt at recreating another Avengers-esque property, basically.
Yeah.
Tron, I love Tron Legacy. The score by Daft Punk, insane. And this one, I mean, like Daft Punk is dead, but they're having 9 Inch Nails do the score, which should be pretty good. And they've done, I mean, the 9 Inch Nails, like the 2 leads have done, they've done film scores before, so it's not out of their domain. But it's the first time they're doing a score as 9 Inch Nails rather than like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. If you guys have seen The Social Network, they did the score for that movie. It's probably one of their most iconic ones. And so Tron Ares, I'm so excited. I've been waiting. I've been waiting for that movie for years. I think there's an overall phenomenon where like I think right now, especially because the studios are like what's the next big thing, we're seeing a bunch of these like IPs that had like a little bit of a emergence like 10 years or so ago or something, getting a little bit of like a toying with, where like Accountant, I think when it came out, it was like, I liked the movie. I saw it when, like in theaters the weekend it released. I thought it was a good movie, but like culturally, it was like pretty like like it went really on the radar. I doubt it made like a return on capital, but it had enough love in just like the pieces of it that are like, whatever, we can turn this into a franchise. The same thing happened with John Wick, where the first movie was so good. It's fundamentally a guy who's like goes on the vengeance streak after he loses like his like last gift from his wife effectively, and somehow they turn that into like a whole multiverse of assassins, and they're still spinning off spin-offs from that thing. There's a series, there's a new Ana de Armas like ballerina film from like one little venue in the John Wick films, where I think we'll see a little bit more of that, and that'll be kind of interesting. It's a relatively new dynamic to take what is a thing that was never meant to be franchised and then suddenly trying to spin up a whole universe around it, that I think studios are trying more and more, but who knows what will come of it. We haven't seen anything major just yet.
All right, as we wrap, the last good thing you saw, last interesting thing you saw could be at home, could be in the theater.
Black Bag. It's a kind of like detective spy thriller. It's only 90 minutes. It's really, really short. Really, really fun if you're super into like mental gymnastics, spy tone stuff. Like it's much more akin to a detective movie than it is like a thriller. But it's really, really good in that way. And the music's also really fun. Like it has a really fun tone to it.
Yeah, I'll give two because one is very mainstream. I'm a White Lotus consumer, so the new season was probably my least favorite of the three, honestly, but I still enjoyed it. And then I'm watching a new one right now that I haven't formed an opinion about yet. It's a new John Hamm one on Apple Plus. It's called Dear Friends and Neighbors. It's interesting. It's fairly lighthearted. Again, my thoughts are still developing, but I am watching that and will probably continue at least through the end of the first season.
Nice. My wife and I are watching season 1 of Severance right now. We're like halfway through it, and we have no idea what's going on. We're still like, what is this show about?
Just as a quirky little detail, when this startup was starting, it was like 2023, like I guess like, or 2023, 2022 is when 2022 is when we first started having these conversations between the three of us. And I was up in Seattle watching Severance for the first time with friends, and the timing of how anti-corporate it made me and the birth of the startup could not have been more aligned. You have no idea. I think we have to be a little bit grateful to Severance for making me feel so inspired to write code on Office.
That's awesome.
All right, we started twice, but it's too slow for me. I can't do it. I've tried.
Burn. It's such a slow burn. Yeah, but yeah, interesting. I'm intrigued enough to keep going. Like most of the time, I'd say like 80% of the time I get a slow burn show, I'm like, I just don't have it. I don't have like the energy for it. But because Severance is kind of in the zeitgeist, it's in the water now, in like common conversation, we're like motivated enough to keep going through the uncertainty. All right, guys, thanks. Another episode in the books. Join us next time for another episode of Scholar AI Finders Pod.